Okay, the idea of this talk started with my family-in-law, that is over there, because we are like a very diverse family. I'm Colombian, as has been said, and my mother-in-law and my husband are Mexican, but my father-in-law is a US citizen. So we are like a really diverse family, and sometimes talking with him about his immigration experience, because I see it like an immigration experience, I said, this is really different and this is really similar about my immigration experience. But the first question I have is why US or Canadian citizens call yourselves expats, and why do we Latino people and Asian people call ourselves immigrants? And that's my first question. Why do we have different names? And what's the difference among us? Is there a difference or several differences? And we also have like really close similarities. And I thought about that talking about my family-in-law. And my mother-in-law is also an immigrant, but an internal immigrant because she is from Mexico, but another part of Mexico. And you know, Mexico is really big. I don't know if, well, the US is really big too, but my country is not that big like Mexico, so I feel like really amazed about how different Mexico can be inside the same country. And that was my first question, why do we have different names from us? And I remember that when I started researching immigration, I also was reluctant to call myself an immigrant, because I had that idea that an immigrant is mostly a guy, a man, walking alone across all the continent and in a train, and his family is behind. And the thing is, here in Mexico we have a really diverse immigration. And Mexico is going to be a really big immigration destiny. Because, well, the first population in here are the US citizens. You are the most big immigration population here. You are even bigger than most of countries together. For example, it's like the US, Venezuela, Colombia, Cuba, and that's what I think we should talk about immigration together, because we are immigrating to this country, and we have the same idea that here in Colombia, oh no, this is Mexico. Here in the US, oh no, this is Mexico. And this particular experience have learned us to talk about what's integration here, because it's not that easy, not even for other Latino countries to integrate here in Mexico. And that's why I wanted to talk about the work that we also have in Caminantas, Red para Mujeres Migrantes. That is an NGO I work with, and I started with a friend. And our work is to help several immigrant and refugee women to integrate here in Mexico. Mostly in Guadalajara, but thanks to the internet, we can talk to women from that are all over Mexico. And Mexico is now a really big destination country. In the 2010 census, we had, I'm sorry, I have problems with the numbers sometimes, but 200,000 approximately immigrants here. And in the 2020, we had 400,000. So we almost doubled the population. And in the 2010 census, the US citizens had their own category in the census. You have like Mexican people, US people, other immigrants. And in 2010, you were 738,000 US citizens living here. And now you are 797,000 people from the US living here. And the next one is Venezuela, and they're like 6,000. And the next one is Colombia, and we're like 3,000. So that's why I think we should also have this immigration and integration talk among us, because we are also coming here. And I thought that talking with my family-in-law, when we were talking about immigration, paperwork, and then when we have to go to Guadalajara to the INM office, and it's really tired, and sometimes it's not that clear what you have what papers you have to go to take there, because they have like this microsite, but it's not what they ask you and what they ask you in the office. And I don't know if you have experienced that when you go with all your paperwork and you come from here and they, no, le falta un papel. Go, what? But I have all the list in the immigration site, website. No, you need this copy or you need this other thing. And those kind of experiences are of shared experiences are what make a community. And I think that we are a community, an immigrant community. So that's why I want to know, and maybe we can talk about it later, that what's different being an expat or call yourself an expat and call yourself an immigrant. Because from my point of view, from my work and my research, we have like very similar situations here, living in Mexico. And you have also really similar situations with Brazilian immigrants or immigrants from IT or other countries with the language that is not the same. But also the Spanish is not the same for us and for Mexico. And if you talk with a lot of other Latino people that speak Spanish, we'll have several funny and curious anecdotes with several words, like the words coger, for example, that here is a very sexual word, but in Colombia or in Spain is a really normal word, or I don't know, maybe if you say astro. Astro has a different name in each country. So that's why I think that diversity is a pillar when we're talking about integration. That we can understand that diversity also let us have like shared situations in this immigration process. But also we have different challenges. And for example, most of Latino immigration here in Mexico or in Jalisco have a problem that maybe some of you don't have, that is getting a job permit. And we are like very different populations here because we came here in a different moment of our life and with different resources. And most of Latino people that come here to Mexico, we have like a professional degree. In the census, I also saw that most of Latino people that come here to Jalisco have like a professional degree and are 50% women and men. And it's a very educated population, but when we came here, we have really a lot of problems getting a job or getting a regular job, because it's not that easy to do the paperwork for your job permit here. And I think that's also an important thing about integration, because we have like different participations in Mexico's economy. And we came here with different resources and different ideas of why we want to live here. Because for most of Latino people, Mexico seems like a really big country and with a lot of economic opportunities. And I don't know, and let's talk about that. What's the idea that you have before you came to Mexico? Because in my thesis, I do a lot of interviews with Latino women, Latino and Caribbean women that lives here in Mexico, and most of them have, and most of us, because I also had the same idea, have a similar idea of Mexico, because we grew with a lot of Mexican influence in our culture, like with Mexican music. My grandpa heard a lot of Mexican music, and we grew with the Mexican doblaje? Is it? Double, huh? And we learned a lot of Mexican words because of that. And we grew with the Mexican soap operas, and most of Latino people know who Chespirito is, and El Chavo del Ocho, and Marimar. And we have like a really big idea of Mexico. And a lot of Latino people can think that Mexico is like a land of opportunities, because it's also next to the US and has a more dynamic economy than a lot of other Latino countries. And well, this year Colombia has a more dynamic economy, but that is like a new thing. But when you ask a lot of Latino immigrants why they are here, is because we think we had a lot of opportunities here that we didn't have at place. I came here because studying in Colombia is really, really expensive. Maybe it's not that expensive like in the US, but it's really expensive, even in a public school. So I have to pay in a public school. And here in Mexico we have like, free education? What? Like public education, public health? What kind of dream is it? And maybe it's not perfect, but it's public. And maybe you can also understand that fascinating idea that maybe a lot of Mexican people have normalized, like, okay, yeah, the IMSS is public, but it has a lot of problems. Yeah, but it's public. And for a lot of Latino people, mostly from Colombia and Chile, that's an exciting thing. So that's why a lot of Latino people came here. And maybe that's like two different challenges we have here in the US, like Latino people and US people, that are our resources and our previous idea of Mexico before coming. So I'd really like to know what was your previous idea of Mexico before coming, because maybe it was not El Chavo del Ocho and Mexican soap operas like us or Vicente Fernandez. But I think it's a really important thing to know, because it's like our first expectation before coming here. But another thing that I learned in my thesis and in Caminantas is the importance of solidarity networks and building community. And that's the main idea that I wanted to talk about here today in today's talk. That we're like, in our eyes, we are an immigrant community, because we didn't grow up here and we don't know the use of the words, and maybe a lot of us has problems understanding what is the SAT and how taxes work and how a lot of paperwork works here in Mexico. So this is an invitation to also have an immigrant community, because immigration is not a problem to be solved among us, among Latino people and among US people and among Canadian people, because I remember we have someone from Toronto over there. And we are not like a different community, and this is like an invitation. Maybe from Caminantas, if you want to go to, we have like a flea market once every semester, and we have women from Brazil, Peru, Colombia, Venezuela, and they sell their food. And a lot of Mexican people like to go there because, Mexican people love food. And it's like their love language. Like, I like you, eat. In Colombia, it's not the same. Maybe in Colombia, it's maybe with a beer, but here in Mexico, they really love food. It's like a love language for them. You are in a funeral, they give you food. You are in a birthday, they give you food. They're always giving you food. And that's a really nice thing. So we learned from our work that sharing food is like a very Mexican way to share and to show that we are interested of being part of a community. So I also wanted to use this space to invite you to Caminantas Bazaar or flea market. I don't know if the appropriate word, but here we call it Bazaar de las Mujeres Migrantes, and to start sharing our immigrant community and our diverse immigration processes. And it is going to be on April 18. So if you want to go and meet another immigrant populations like from Colombia and Venezuela, and maybe we are not that organized like you because we are spread all over the city, but we are also trying to make these solidarity networks. And I strongly believe in these very dark and confusing times, building community is the easiest and more simple way to fight fascism or discrimination, because there are not like light ideas or easy situations, like in a movie, like you have this final scene and everything is solved, and in real life it doesn't work like that. And we from Caminantas and another immigration communities, we think that building a community is the best way to treat immigration, not just among Venezuelan people or Colombian people or US people, but also with Mexican people and among us, because we have shared experiences, like going to the INM offices, like like eating spicy food. I don't know if you have problems with spicy food, but most of Latino people or most of Colombia people have problems with spicy food because we don't eat that spicy. It's not common in the rest of Latin America. And this is also an invitation to get to know all the other Latino communities that live here in Guadalajara and in Mexico, in the area, because I think we have a lot of experience to share with you, and also about immigration and getting used to live here in Mexico, because we also have a really particular way of living here in Mexico, and I think it can be interesting. Like they have these spaces when we share our experiences, and I think that because my family is the first space when I start to think about these different and similar immigration spaces. How are we on time? And yeah, I think we have like 10 minutes.
No, you're okay.
Ah, okay. And so we really think, and well, like I told you, I work in an NGO called Caminantas, Red para Mujeres Migrantes, and the main idea is to provide information to another immigrant women here in Mexico. And that was the first idea, because we felt really lonely here in Mexico. And even if we talk the language, and we saw Marimar and El Chavo del Ocho, and we have a really clear idea of Mexico, we felt really lonely, because I think immigration is also like a lonely experience. Even if you are doing it with your couple or with your partner or a friend, you feel really lonely when you leave your hometown. And I don't know if that's also your experience, like this nostalgia, like missing your family, missing your traditions. Maybe on Thanksgiving you are like all nostalgic, like we are on, I don't know, 20 of July 20 or something like that, or in Christmas, because Christmas in Colombia is a really particular experience. So this nostalgia, this loneliness was the first step that led us to start an NGO and try to build a community among immigrant women and refugees. And after 5 years, it has proven to be a really easy in I don't know if it's easy, but it's not that hard. It's like a real fluid and a really useful way to improve integration of women here in Mexico. Because a lot of these women don't came with a plan. Maybe a lot of Colombian women were trying to try find a job, or a Venezuelan women were looking for refugee, and most of us didn't came with a long-term plan, but we are trying to start a life here. So, this feeling of loneliness was the first idea, and 5 years later we have like this over 100 women community, and we share a lot of spaces, and we share a lot of activities, and we've started to bond and start friendships. And I think that our idea is also like open this community to another immigrant communities like Open Cycle. And we also have like a lot of Asian immigration in Jalisco from India, for example. And I think it's important that immigration seems like a very multicultural experience. And maybe in the US you are more used to have this very diverse immigration, because it's a traditionally a country that receives immigrants. But here in Mexico, it's like a really new phenomenon. Like Mexican people doesn't know or aren't sure yet that they are receiving more and more immigrants. And it's going to keep happening. And it doesn't matter if a government from the US or Mexico try to stop that, because immigration is not a problem to be solved. And it's like a thing that it has been happening all the time. And people from the US are coming, and people from Latin America are coming, and people from Asia are coming, and that's not going to stop. And the question is, how can we integrate here with the community and be part of a community that we don't have like this shared history? And that's the question I want to leave there. How can we be part of a Mexican community? Even if you are from the US or Canada or Colombia or Venezuela, because we have different histories and different food and different music. And how can also we make a community from immigrants? So that's the main question I want to have. And also this is like a little bit invitation to stop considering us like a different community, like expats or immigrants. I don't know if what's the right word, because they also have have a history, but I really think that we have a shared experience that is coming here from another country with different traditions and different histories to be part of here. So I think it doesn't make any sense to consider us like us and them, like the Latino immigrants or the US citizen immigrants or the Asian immigrants, but I think we have a lot of more chances of building communities here if we think in ourselves like a shared community, and we also share our experiences. And that's I wanted to talk about the Caminantas work and leave this invitation. So if you want to go to our activities and meet immigrants from another country and eat food from another countries, I think we have a lot of potential, like building new communities about immigration. And I think like I have like 5 minutes. Okay. Okay, so I'm anyways ending the presentation here. Sorry if my English is not my first language. I had classes when I was a kid, but it's not my first language. And sometimes when you are, I don't know if you watch Modern Family, but there's a scene when Sofia Vergara says, "You don't know how smart I am in Spanish." So I feel kind of like I'm really smart in Spanish, I promise. And I have a great grammar. But that's also an invitation. I think that also living in Mexico and living in my family has also improved my English skills and my understanding of the US, because as a Latino person, sometimes we have these stereotype ideas among us from the US and from Latino countries. And I think that my family-in-law and my life here in Mexico has been an opportunity to also question these stereotypes that we have among us, among our countries. And for example, I was yesterday, the day before yesterday, I don't think that's a word for antier in English. The day before yesterday. Yeah, antier is like a really nice. And I was talking about also Trump's politics on immigration, and I said I think it's important to talk in Mexico and the US that a government is not the same as the whole country and the people of our country, because that's the first step to deteriorate or communities. So a lot of people in here in Mexico, they also say they don't want us here, the government is the worst with us, they don't want immigration here, and they are like starting to be like really angry with Mexicans, and Mexican people doesn't even really know what's happening. So that's also an invitation to question these stereotypes between our cultures, because we don't have like this much interaction sometimes between Latino communities and US communities, and I think it's important that in this historical moment that is 2026, we start to have like a more fluid and close communication among us. So that's also an opportunity maybe for having I don't know, maybe if you're open to have like a Caminantas event here, or if you're willing to have an open cycle event in Guadalajara with caminantas or with FM Cuatro Paso Libre or other several immigration communities. And I think that's a really nice first step, and it's like a really small thing sometimes, but it's more realistic than thinking on an easy solution to immigration and differences. But I don't know, sharing a moment, sharing a meal, sharing an experience, sharing a story is the first step for building communities, and that's why I'm here and why I think it's important to come here and talk about our similar and different immigration experiences. And now I'm over.